Give a little of yourself. Cure your greed, purify your wealth. Look around at where you live. Look at all the good you have to give. Give a little of yourself. There's a hand somewhere to hold, a mouth to feed. There's so much that we can do for so many who are in need. Give our time, give our wealth, give our love, give ourselves. Know Allah sees each and every hidden deed. Give a little of yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Fiqh of Zakah, a series of programs where we look detailed into Zakah, something which is the third pillar of Islam. We have over 30 ayahs of the Quran speaking about this important topic, something that affects all of us. To help us go through this and expound upon this, we have with us Sheikh Mohammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallahu khairan jameel.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Sheikh, in the previous episode, we went into the important topics of those people who receive the zakah. And we went into the first two, and if I'm correct, I'll put them in the right order this time. The fuqara, then the masakin. And you explained it was one are the poor, and the other is a sub-sect or subcategory of the poor.
Subgroup.
One question may come to mind, Sheikh, is you spoke about before that to receive the poor, one of the characteristics is the one who doesn't even get to the nisab.
No.
Now here's a question for you. If somebody gets to the nisab, but he himself, may need zakah, is this actually something that ever happens at all, Sheikh?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala nabihi wa mustafah Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah wa ba'd. It is a matter of your needs, and whether what you possess meet your basic needs or not. You can have a person who has a building. The building is several 100,000. He's renting them, and the rent that he collects, and he's surviving on the rent. He has many kids, some going to school here and there. His wife is sick, and he has a lot of financial commitment. The rent that he collects does not even suffice his needs for 15 days of the month, and the rest he's in trouble. So while he has the nisab, he's eligible for the zakah. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, may Allah have mercy on him, said, you may find a person who have cattle, camels or sheep, has for instance 40 sheep, and you know that the nisab for the sheep 40 is 40, then he owes one sheep. But the 40 sheep that he has, that he's living in a very tough conditions, either because of the many commitment that he has supporting big family, or because the prices are going skyrocket, like nowadays. Government employees, government employees are struggling to live. And when I look at it, sometimes I recline on my chair and I think about it. Rishwa is haram. It is definitely haram. Bribery, it's a major sin. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الرَّاشِي وَالْمُرْتَشِي وَالرَّائِشِ. Everyone who's involved in bribery is cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it is a very difficult equation. It is impossible to imagine somebody who's earning, official earning, and he does not perfect any job. He earns that much, and that much is not sufficient for him for 3 or 4 days of the entire month. So we're forcing people towards the haram. I'm not trying to justify their misdoing, but what I'm saying is that we have to pay attention to those people, because perhaps by assisting them from the zakah fund, they would avoid stretching their hands to the haram. So lacking behind in one area would lead to a disaster on the other area, and so on. It can be a professional, a doctor, a principal of a school, or a big sheikh, or a manager of a company or a governmental business, and he's eligible for the zakah. He has a private driver and a chauffeur that he's taking him to work. His job makes it available for him. But out of all of that, his salary isn't enough for him to survive. So this person is eligible and entitled for the zakah fund.
Okay, now we've gone through the fuqara and the masakin, and I remember you going through 8 categories. So what are the rest of these categories, Shaykh?
The ayah says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. Let's take it one thing at a time. الْعَامِلُونَ عَلَيْهَا are the government employees or the state employees who are in charge for guarding the zakah, collecting the zakah and distributing the zakah. So the custodians of the zakah, the shepherds if the zakah is cattle, and the clerks for the administration of the zakah. They are eligible for to take their salaries if they are appointed by the state or the emir or the imam. They are eligible to take their salaries from the zakah fund on reasonable basis with conditions. Those conditions do not include being poor. No, the zakah custodian or the clerks may be rich, but this is his job, so he will get paid from the zakah as well. But the conditions are, number one, that they should be Muslims, because it's not permissible to give zakah to non-Muslims, except in few cases that we'll discuss inshallah very soon. Okay. And second, not to be from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the Prophet's family are not eligible for the zakah. In one hadith, Al-Muttalib ibn Rabi'ah ibn al-Harith went along with Al-Fadl ibn al-Abbas. These are the Prophet's cousins. They went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they said, Ya Rasulullah, جئناك لتؤمرنا على هذه الصدقات. We came to ask you to make us administer the zakah. Why? So that نصيب ما يصيب الناس, people get paid, so it's a job. So we wanted to get also a share of that. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّ الصَّدَقَةَ لَا تَنْبَغِي لِمُحَمَّدٍ وَلَا لِآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ إِنَّمَا هِيَ أَوْسَاخُ النَّاسِ. That's a sound hadith. It is not permissible neither for Muhammad nor his family to receive the sadaqah, the mandatory zakah, because it is the filth of people's wealth, the filth that comes out of people's wealth. If you remember from the very first episode, we spoke about az-zakah or as-sadaqah. It's a mean of purification. It purifies one's wealth. So this part of the zakah, reduce zakah in one's wealth, is evil if it stays there. So when you take it out, it purifies your wealth. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we're not allowed to take the filth that comes out of people's wealth. So if they're Muslims and they're working appointed by the government or the state, if there is Baytul Mal that collects the zakah fund and distributes it, so those people are eligible for the zakah, and they can definitely get paid out of this zakah. In one hadith, which is narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ardah, he said that النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said, لا تحل الصدقة لغني. A sadaqah is not permissible, the mandatory zakah is not permissible to be given to a rich person. Well, I thought you just mentioned a few minutes ago that we can give the salaries of the employees or the custodians or the administrators of the zakah from the zakah fund, even if they're rich. But the hadith here says لا تحل الصدقة لغني, but it also says إلا لخمسة, except for 5 rich people. Number 1, العاملين عليها,
okay,
so who administer the zakah. Number 2, a man who buys the sadaqah by his money. We collect the sadaqah somewhere and maybe we give it to somebody. He doesn't want this particular money. We give the sheep to a poor person, so he sells it to a rich person. He wants the cash. That is permissible. So he has taken the particular sheep which was given as a sadaqah, but he did not take it for him as a sadaqah. He paid for it. That is permissible. أو غارم, or a person who is burdened with a debt. So he may be rich or has an asab, but he has a big debt he cannot settle. So we give him from the zakah. أو غاز في سبيل الله. Those who do not get paid by the government and they are mujahideen enrolled in the Muslim army as volunteers, they get paid from the zakah, even if they are rich. أو مسكين تصدق عليه منها فأهدى منها لغني. Or perhaps you give a sadaqah to a miskin, and this miskin takes it to somebody else and gives it to him as a gift, and the person who's been given this as a gift is rich, so that too is permissible. These are the 5 cases where the sadaqah is lawful to end up in the hand of a rich person. And it is justified. If you examine the 5 cases, it is not that we go to somebody who's rich and give him the sadaqah. There are reasons why it ended up in the hand of such and such person.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, this is going to be the point. We're going to take a short break. Please do stay with us on the Fiqh of Zakah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Give a little of yourself. Cure your greed. Purify your wealth.
We need to strive to know the ruling of the Sharia on a particular incident. Why scholars had to put a lot of effort trying to figure out how to give the ruling on such topics and issues. Islam tells you to look good, to smell good. The reason of the recession was the collaboration between insurance companies and the banks. Some scholars, though, stated that it is permissible for you to insure because you're compelled to do this by the government, by law, but you're not allowed to benefit from the insurance policy.
Much that we can do for so many who are in need. Give our time, give our wealth, give our love, give ourselves.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Fiqh of Zakah. Just before the break, we discussed the third category, shall we say, those people who are distributing or collecting, shall I say, the zakah on the state, for the state. Now, let's look at the next category, Sheikh, because this is one of the ones which I think many people may be new to. They may not really understand, and something which needs to be looked at. Those people who their hearts, okay, need to be brought closer to Islam. Explain what this category is, Sheikh.
There is a 4th category of the zakah recipients according to verse number 60 of Surah At-Tawbah. إنما الصدقات للفقراء المساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم, for reconciliation of hearts. Those whose hearts are to be reconciled. In what sense? It could be Muslims who are living in remote areas on the borders between us and non-Muslim countries. And non-Muslims are working constantly on them in order to convert them, in order to bring them to their side. We have to pay attention to them. Nowadays, in today's world, we have seen in some Muslim countries, their neighboring countries are working hard on the bad ones who are living on the borders, utilizing them to spy on the Muslims, to work for them. Why? Because the state have neglected them. It is very late for some countries to recognize that those are our citizens, those are our fellow Muslims. We have to pay attention to them. We have to support them. They have no infrastructure. They have no education means. They don't have anything that we have in the city. So this is one type that we give them from the zakah in order to reconcile their hearts and tell them, you are of us and we are of you. We happen to be living far away, but you're protecting our borders. It could be new Muslims who just came to Islam, and we show them good faith and we support them financially, because the support is not just spiritual. Repeatedly, when somebody accepts Islam, we travel all over the world. When somebody accepts Islam, we say, Takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And then what's the next step? Now you need to do the following. Make sure you work in halal, earn halal, and you make sure you gotta do this and you gotta do that. We give them a bunch of instructions, say goodbye, see you later. That's not proper. It's not befitting. We have to support those people. Now you told them that there is halal and haram, you cannot work in this, you have to work in that, without supporting them. Support is not just spiritual. Financial support is very important. The missionaries, there are armies of missionaries who work hard on converting people who are either Muslims or do not know whether they have a religion or not. particularly in Africa, in some parts of Asia, and so on. What do they do and how do they convert them? They do not build a church and teach them the Bible, because I don't want to learn, I want to eat.
So it's food in one hand, are you saying? And
food in one hand, food or money or medicine, building hospitals,
or medicine, yeah.
you know, finance. Then in the other hand, you give them the Bible. He is not concerned about the Bible. He is concerned about the hand which gives him the food. So whichever direction you want to direct him, you will direct him. And you maybe you're familiar with this very famous case where missionaries entered a village and they converted everybody. And they gave them food, built schools, hospitals, they gave them money, started small projects. And when there was a function celebrating their conversion and their they asked them if they needed anything. So they all said, yeah, we needed one thing, to go for Hajj. So basically, they may convert people, not convert their hearts, but they convert the outside of them.
so their needs, basically.
They
Yeah.
fulfill their needs. Why? Because there is negligence on the other hand. There are a lot of rich people who make billions of dollars out of selling oil. And the oil was found in Allah's properties. It is the right of the Muslims. There is a zakat due on that, right? So it has to be directed to those people. So we find missionaries who have tons of help, private planes, flying hospitals, and tremendous financial assets. And on the other hand, we're not doing nothing. So al-mu'allafati qulubuhum, in order to reconcile the hearts of those who may have converted, or they are on the edge, or they do not know nothing about their deen, or on the borders, or non-Muslims who are thinking about Islam. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did that with Safwan ibn Umayyah. After the conquest of Mecca, Safwan ibn Umayyah was one of the Meccan leaders, Meccan chiefs who opposed the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam repeatedly, and he was very harsh against Muslims. Similarly, Abu Sufyan and others, Al-Aqra ibn Habis, etc. How did the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam reconcile their hearts? He gave him safety for 4 months, according to the Quran said. And he started giving him gifts. Safwan ibn Umayyah helped Muslims in their war against Hawazin and Thaqif in the Battle of Hunayn, and he was not a Muslim. He supported them with his weapons and armors and all of that, and he went with them while he was not a Muslim. But after 4 months, after what he has seen from the kind treatment of the Prophet ﷺ, he looks at a valley full of camels. He likes it. So Nabi ﷺ said, you like it? Yeah, it's all yours. Yours? How come? So when they recognize that Islam is a very generous religion, he said, والله لقد أعطاني النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وإنه لأبغض الناس إلي فما زال يعطيني حتى إنه لأحب الناس إلي. Safwan said that I did not hate anybody as much as I hated Muhammad. But his generosity, he kept giving me and giving me and giving me until I really loved him. Some people, love will be developed in their hearts through showing them generosity. In Arabic they say تزود بالسخاء فإن كل عيب يغطيه كما قيل السخاء. When you're generous to people, even if you have some faults and some drawbacks, people would ignore them, neglect them, because you're generous. This is not called bribery. This is counter-attacking the effect or the attacks of the non-Muslim party who are trying to convert Muslims or people pull people towards their side. So from the Zakah fund, we are permitted and encouraged to support those who are in need to reconcile their hearts. This is in brief with regards to al-mu'allafati qulubuh.
So let's ask you a bit of a contemporary question around this, Sheikh, if possible. Would you recommend then, so people who are giving zakah, because like you said, we're now living in a state, or which is many of us, which is not run by the Khalifa or the Muslim empire, and thus they can take our money and distribute it. Say you live in a non-Muslim land, can you give to organizations that give dawah now? Is this one of those?
This is another category will be discussed in this episode, inshaAllah Azza Jal, right now, if we have time. But if you want to ask a question that is really related to the subject, it will be whether can we now give to al-mu'allafati qulubuhum, or are there any mu'allafati qulubuhum now, to people who are trying to reconcile their hearts?
That's right.
Abu Hanifa and his school of thought hold the view that this category has been dropped. So the categories of the recipients of zakah are only 7. It's reduced to 7 instead of 8. Why? He said because once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the ummah mighty and powerful, and the truth prevailed, there is no need anymore to reconcile the hearts. If you want to accept Islam, you accept it. If you want to remain in Islam, you remain. And we're not helping you unless if you're poor or eligible according to the other 7 categories. That was his ijtihad. Believing that, Umar ibn Khattab has a precedence in this regard. Al-Aqra' ibn Habis and others, Abbas ibn Mardas, who used to take from the zakah fund at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when he died, they went to Abu Bakr Siddiq, so he wrote them a letter to Bayt al-Mal, and they kept cashing this zakah fund as mu'allafati qulubuh. When Umar ibn al-Khattab came in power, and you know that during his era, Muslims have overruled almost 2/3 of the world, have conquered the Byzantine Empire and the Persian Empire. So Muslims were mighty power. Muslim state was a big state now. So they came to Umar ibn Khattab with this writing, with the recommendation letter. So he tore it. And he said, listen, no fund for you unless if you're poor. You're not eligible for it. And if you want to remain in Islam, it's up to you. You don't want to. So he said, you're not eligible for it. And Abu Hanifa relied on that. While the Jumhur said this is a category that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, it might not be available at some eras or times, it might be needed some other times. And Allah knows best what we see in Africa nowadays, especially with the campaigns and the waves of campaigns of missionaries working on people to convert them. I think that we really need to consider that, and those people are from al-mu'allafati qulubuhum, and they are entitled for the zakah based on this category.
So just to recap again, we've got these categories. We had the fuqara, the masakin.
Fuqara and masakin, a subgroup of al-fuqara.
We had the people who work for the state.
عاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم, for reconciliation of hearts.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for all your advice today, and especially the expanding and explaining to us about these categories within zakah. Until next time, I leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Give a little of yourself, cure your greed, purify your wealth. Look around at where you live, look at all the good you have to give. Give a little of yourself. There's a hand somewhere to hold, a mouth to feed. There's so much that we can do for so many who are in need. Give our time, give our wealth, give our love, give ourselves. Know Allah sees each and every hidden deed.